final part for Sit Down, You're Rocking the Boat. I dreamed last night I got on a boat to heaven, and by some chance I had brought my dice along, and there I stood and I hollered, someone fade me, and the passengers they knew right from wrong. For the people all said, sit down, sit down, sit down, you're rocking the boat. People all said, sit down, sit down, sit down, you're rocking the boat. And the devil will drag you under, in the soul so heavy, never float. Sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, you're rocking the boat. Rocking the boat, sit down, you're rocking the boat. And as I laughed at those passengers from heaven, I sank and I hollered, someone save me. It's the moment I woke up. Thank the Lord. For the people all said, sit down, sit down, sit down, you're rocking the boat. People all said, sit down, sit down, sit down, you're rocking the boat. And the devil will drag you under, with a soul so heavy, never float. Sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, you're rocking the boat. Down, sit down, 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 sit down, 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 sit down, 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 sit, you're rocking the boat. Sit down, you're rocking the boat. Sit down, you're rocking the boat. Sit down, you're rocking the great big boat. Sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, you betcha. Sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, down, you're rocking the boat. Sit down, sit down, you're rocking the boat. Sit down, sit down, sit down now, sit down, you're rocking the boat. And the devil will drag you under, with the soul so heavy, never float. Sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, you're rocking the boat. Now sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, you're rocking the boat. Okay, let me clean a couple things there. Your entrance in the sort of vampy section comes after the altos do theirs a couple of times, and it sounds like this at your entrance. So 1, 2, 3, sit down. Now I'll try it again. Sit down, you're rocking the boat. Sit down, you're rocking the boat. Sit down, sit down, sit down now. Sit down, you're rocking the boat. And the devil will drag you under, with the soul so heavy you never float. Sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, you're rocking the boat. Sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, you're rocking the boat. Sit down. Okay, now we got to do the second soprano parts, and there's not many. It only splits up at the very end. So you do your last. Sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, you're rocking the boat. Sit, oh, my bad. Sit down, you're rocking the boat. Sit down. Let me do all that again. Second soprano part. Sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, sit down, you're rocking the boat. Sit